Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, African Queen Grace. I'm based in Kisumu, a city in Kenya. So today I want to talk about bullying, and mainly specifically bullying in our workplaces. I think all or nearly major organizations talk about sexual harassment, which is good, which is key. But I think bullying is a subset of harassment that also just needs to be addressed, like the focus that we give on sexual harassment. I wanted to talk about bullying because many people talk about bullying in the cyberspace, online, in the internet. They talk about bullying in schools where our kids go to. They talk about bullying in the markets, like in rough areas. But people forget to talk about bullying in the work areas, in organizations. And if you think about it, bullying is very rampant in our organizations. Some may be very loud, some may be very subtle, but it does happen. It's about time we shed some light on what bullying is, how do we address bullies, what are some signs and symptoms of someone who is being bullied or someone who is doing the bullying themselves, and looking at what should someone do in these work setups when they're being bullied. And lastly, we're also going to address the issue of bullying from the Employment Act. What does the government expect us to do as organizations with regards to addressing bullying? So I'm not going to address all this in this video because it's quite chunky and it's quite a lot. Today we are only going to define what bullying is. Then we are going to look at the characteristics of bullying, and then we are going to talk about the different subsets of what bullying is. And then the other videos will come later on. So make sure you're following me in the other videos to get tips on how to deal with bullying, to get tips on what the organizations are expected to do with regards to addressing bullying. So straight on, we are going to define bullying. So what does bullying, how is bullying defined? And I wanted to bring it from the first angle of definition as in terms of the dictionary. So bullying is seek to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived to be vulnerable. So you can be vulnerable in different, angles. It could be that you're vulnerable because your manager is harsh. It could be that you're vulnerable because you're having a little income. It could be that you're vulnerable because of the type of work that you're doing. So bullying can come in different forms. But the person who is doing this is seeking to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. That is the dictionary definition. So when we go back to, just generally looking at bullying, what is bullying? Bullying is harmful, targeted behavior that happens in a work environment. So bullying is not something that is nice, it's not something that is kind, it's not something that is exciting to be around. Bullying is negativity. Bullying is, someone who wants to put you down, someone who wants you to feel intimidated, worthless. You really feel, you feel hopeless around bullies. You don't feel like you have a strength or even a voice to speak. That's how we define bullying. So to give you some of the examples of bullying in our workplaces, and you'll allow me to, I wrote some notes down and did some research on this. So when I'm looking at the computer, I'm trying to make sure that I'm on point. Some of the things that people do in organizations that exude bullying is, number one, targeted practical jokes. So when people do this, jokes in the offices that sometimes can allude to sexual harassment, but sometimes it's just to intimidate you. You can find that this bullying is directed to maybe one person or directed to a group of people. It really just depends. When those targeted practical jokes are not welcomed, that is a form of bullying. If this person keeps doing this over and over again, and they're doing it towards one person who is hopeless, and all they can do maybe is just to look down or maybe to walk away, and they don't have the strength to fight back. That is an example of bullying. Another one that usually happens, and we really need to define this. That's why I said in my other videos we're going to dig deep into it, is excessive performance monitoring. When we talk about, performance management, or we talk about a manager monitoring the performance of their employees, it could be direct report, it could be indirect. What does it mean to draw a line between what is reasonable and what is not reasonable? Because if you're nitty-gritty, and we call it micromanaging managers, you're micromanaging your direct reports. Everything, you have to look at what point does it cut to say that this is now bullying? Because remember, the person who is being bullied, they don't have a voice, they are intimidated, they don't have the strength to push back, they are disadvantaged. So when your manager is over monitoring what you're doing in terms of performance, how do you define that as bullying? When you find maybe, say, harsh and unjust criticism, probably you've given your report and the feedback that is coming is very harsh, that is also a form of bullying. What type of language should a manager be using when they're giving back feedback? Because sometimes it's just the nuances in how someone communicates this that makes it okay or makes it a form of a bullying. And remember, we said bullying is a repeated behavior. It's something that someone does again and again. And because they feel they're in charge, the bullies themselves feel they're in charge and nothing can happen to them, they keep on doing it again and again. The other form of bullying is when someone offers threats, humiliation, or other verbal abuse. They feel they can say anything, throw words around. No one is going to reprimand them. And this happens in our workplaces. And let me say, when I'm talking about workplaces, people think that find the different types of jobs that people do. It could be in the field, it could be, in a setup where you're just answering phones. It could be in a setup where your office, you're doing your, using computers. So there are different forms of setups of organizations, but all this is encompassed in the issues that I'm trying to address today, the issues of bullying. So when you're being threatened, when you're being humiliated, and sometimes the threats could be direct, which is a form of harassment, or it could be indirect, those subtle emails, those subtle tones that really, when you try and, as we say in Kiswahili, kuchambua, you want to really dig deep into it, you find that it's a form of bullying. Then another one that is another example is continued denial of requests. You can find that you're requesting for time off, you're rejected. You're requesting for this review, you're rejected. You're requesting for that, it's always a no, 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 no. And then there are some people who, when they request for something, it's quite easy. Theirs is, bring I sign, bring I stamp. Theirs is always approved. So how do you address these forms of bullying? And that is why I talked about bullying in the form of what does the government expect of organizations and what is the responsibility of the organization itself. We really try and focus on sexual harassment, saying this is what you're required. If this happens, make sure you're reporting, make sure you call this number, use this email. How about bullying? Who addresses the issues of bullies? remember, those people who are being bullied are already disadvantaged. They don't have a voice. So how can they raise these issues up in a safe environment that they can feel empowered to do so? I would like you to maybe comment down there and in the boxes and tell me what forms of bullies you have experienced, you have encountered, you have had stories, because these are things that happen to you and the people that are around us. How have you interacted with bullies? What other forms of bullying have we seen in your work environment? And this would be interesting, because even as we try to find for solutions, it would be good for me to come up with solutions that are practical. Remember, we are in these work environments because we need food on our tables, we need school fees, we need an income. So most of the people who are being bullied don't have a voice because they know they don't have anywhere else to get their money. Currently, the environment, even with the coronavirus pandemic, is one that everybody is on the edge. They don't want to be sent home. They don't want to speak against maybe management. They don't want to speak against their manager because you're afraid that you might be sent home. Where are you going to get a job with this environment, where people are being sent home for one reason or the other? So we really need to address these issues of ways that people can empower themselves, that is number one, ways that organizations can empower their employees, and ways that they can be sensitized that if these things happen, there are forms of bullying and harassment, and you need to speak out. You need to reach out. And these are the avenues you can do so. So today, I'm just going to stop at that, because I don't want to rush things. This is a topic that we really need to go through step by step. Today was about defining what bullying is and looking at examples of bullying in our workplaces, in our environment. And then the next subset, we are going to look at types of bullying. We are going to categorize them. And then we are going to look at solutions. So we are not just identifying these things. We want to go through and see what the solutions are there and what are the things that are practical in our work environment that we can actually do to help us or to cushion ourselves against bullies. I welcome you to comment, to like, to share with me your experiences, so that as we go through this journey, we are encouraging one another and we are empowering one another. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe. My name is African Queen Grace. Remember to share it. Remember to put on the bell so that you're not missing out in future videos that I'm coming up with, in like topics like this one that I'm continuing with, so that we can grow in this journey together. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.